She woke up every morning before sunrise, when the city was still quiet and the lights in most buildings were turned off. For her, silence felt safer than noise. It gave her time to prepare herself for the day ahead. She dressed neatly in her simple maid uniform, tied her hair back, and checked herself in the mirror. She always made sure she looked invisible, not because she wanted to, but because being noticed made her uncomfortable. She worked in one of the most expensive corporate residences in the city, a place owned by a powerful CEO. The building was large, modern, and always spotless. Marble floors, glass walls, and expensive furniture filled every room. To others, it looked like a dream place. To her, it was just another place where she needed to stay quiet and do her job well. She moved softly through the halls, cleaning rooms, arranging furniture, and wiping surfaces until they shined. She never rushed, but she never wasted time either. The other staff members noticed how careful she was, how she avoided unnecessary conversation. If someone spoke to her, she replied politely but briefly. She preferred to keep her thoughts to herself. There was a reason for her silence. Long before she came to work here, her life had been filled with fear and pain. She had grown up in a home where shouting was common and kindness was rare. Words had often hurt more than actions. Over time, she learned that staying quiet helped her survive. Silence became her shield. Music was the only thing that ever broke that silence for her. When she was young, she found comfort in simple melodies. She didn't have fancy instruments back then, just a small keyboard someone had thrown away. But when she played it, her hands stopped shaking. Her breathing slowed. The memories that haunted her became softer, easier to bear. Music helped her heal in ways nothing else could. Now, as an adult, she carried that habit with her. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, she hummed softly or imagined melodies in her mind. She never played music at work. She didn't want to draw attention. She believed her past and her pain were things she had to carry alone. The CEO rarely appeared in the residence. Everyone knew him as a powerful man who ran a large company and made difficult decisions every day. When he did visit, the staff became tense. They spoke less, walked faster, and made sure everything was perfect. She felt his presence even without seeing him. The air seemed heavier on those days. She had never spoken to him. In fact, she had only seen him from a distance a few times. He always looked serious, tired, and lost in thought. To her, he was just another reminder that this place did not belong to her. She was there to clean, not to exist. During her breaks, she sat alone in a small staff room near the back of the building. While others chatted or scrolled on their phones, she stared at the floor or out the window. She thought about her past, about how far she had come and how far she still had to go. She didn't dream big dreams. She only wished for peace. At night, after her shift ended, she returned to her small rented room. It was nothing special, but it was hers. In the corner of the room stood an old piano she had saved for months to buy. It wasn't perfect. Some keys were slightly out of tune, but to her it was precious. Every night she played the same tune. It was slow, gentle, and familiar. Each note felt like a deep breath after a long day. As she played, her mind relaxed. The pain from her past didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling her. Music gave her strength to face another day. She didn't know it yet, but the quiet life she lived behind closed doors was about to change. The tune she played for herself, the one that helped her survive her trauma, would soon reach someone else who was also fighting a battle in silence. The next few days passed like every other day, calm on the outside but heavy inside her heart. She continued her work quietly, cleaning rooms, dusting shelves, and arranging things exactly the way they were supposed to be. She believed routine kept her safe. When everything followed a pattern, nothing unexpected could hurt her. One afternoon, something small but unusual happened. While cleaning a rarely used lounge on the top floor, she noticed a piano placed near the glass wall. It was a beautiful instrument, black and polished, clearly expensive. She had never seen it before. The room itself felt different from the rest of the building. It was warmer, softer, less strict. Sunlight entered gently through the windows and the city looked peaceful from that height. She stood there for a moment longer than she should have. Her eyes rested on the piano keys. Her fingers moved slightly, almost on their own, as if remembering the familiar feeling. She quickly stopped herself. This was not her place. She reminded herself of that and returned to her work. What she did not know was that the piano had been placed there recently for the CEO. No one talked about it openly, but among the senior staff there were quiet whispers. The CEO had not been well, not physically sick in a way doctors could easily explain, but something deeper. He suffered from constant anxiety, sleepless nights, and sudden panic attacks. His mind never rested. At night when the city slept, he stayed awake in his office or apartment, staring at screens, thinking about numbers, decisions, and failures. The pressure of leading a massive company had slowly crushed him. Success had brought him power, but it had also brought loneliness. He trusted no one with his weakness. Doctors advised rest. Therapists suggested breathing exercises and medication. Nothing seemed to help for long. Then one doctor suggested something unusual, music therapy. The doctor explained that certain melodies could calm the nervous system, helping the brain slow down. The CEO did not believe in such things, but desperation made him try. That was why the piano was there. That same evening, the maid finished her work late. Most of the staff had already left. As she passed by the top-floor lounge, she heard a sound she hadn't expected, a single piano note, then another. The sound was not confident or skilled. It was slow and unsure, almost painful. She stopped walking. Someone was playing the piano. Her first thought was fear. She was not supposed to be there after hours. She considered walking away quietly, but something kept her frozen in place. The melody being played was broken, uneven, filled with hesitation. It sounded like someone searching for something they couldn't find. Then she saw him. The CEO sat at the piano, shoulders slightly hunched, hands resting stiffly on the keys. His face looked nothing like the powerful image everyone knew. He looked tired, lost, almost fragile. His jaw was tight and his breathing was shallow. She watched from a distance, hidden by the doorway. She knew she should leave, but her heart ached in a way she couldn't explain. The way he pressed the keys reminded her of herself when she first started playing music. Afraid of making mistakes, afraid of feeling too much. Suddenly his hands stopped moving. He lowered his head, gripping the edge of the piano. His chest rose and fell quickly. Even without hearing his words, she could see he was struggling to breathe. Panic. She recognized it instantly. She had felt it many times before. Without thinking, she stepped forward slightly. Her movement made a soft sound. He looked up, startled. Their eyes met for the first time. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air felt tense and fragile. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to intrude." What? He looked at her, confused, then tired. "It's fine," he replied quietly. His voice lacked authority. It sounded human. She hesitated, then spoke again. "If you don't mind, may I help?" He frowned slightly. "Help how?" What? She glanced at the piano. Her hands trembled, but she gathered courage. "Music, it helps me when breathing becomes hard." He studied her face. Something in her expression made him nod slowly. He moved aside. She sat at the piano carefully, as if afraid it might disappear. She placed her fingers on the keys and closed her eyes. Then she began to play. It was the same tune she played every night. Slow, gentle, familiar. As the melody filled the room, something changed. The CEO's breathing began to slow. His shoulders relaxed slightly. The noise in his head faded, replaced by the steady flow of sound. She did not know it yet, but this quiet moment was the beginning of a connection neither of them had been looking for, and one that would change both their lives forever. She did not stop playing when she felt his breathing change. Her fingers continued moving gently over the keys, following the tune she knew by heart. It was not a complicated melody. It did not try to impress anyone. It was simply honest. Each note felt like a soft hand placed over a restless heart. The CEO sat still beside her. At first, his mind tried to resist the calm. Thoughts of meetings, deadlines, and unfinished plans pushed against the music. But slowly, the sound began to reach places those thoughts could not. His chest stopped tightening. The sharp pain behind his eyes eased. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he could breathe without fighting for it. When the tune ended, the room stayed silent for a few seconds. Neither of them moved. It felt like breaking the silence would disturb something fragile. "Thank you," he finally said, his voice low and steady. "I haven't felt this calm in a long time." She nodded, unsure what to say. Compliments made her uncomfortable. She stood up slightly, ready to leave. "I should go back to work," she said. He looked at her with curiosity. "What is your name?" What? She hesitated. "Anna," she replied softly. It was rare for someone like him to ask. "I'm Daniel," he said, even though she already knew who he was. For the first time, his title did not matter. He was just a man sitting next to a piano, trying to survive his own mind. Over the next few days, their paths crossed again, but only in small, quiet moments. Sometimes he would be in the lounge when she was cleaning. Other times he would arrive late in the evening and she would hear the piano from the hallway. Each time he struggled at first, and each time the music helped. Eventually, he asked her if she could play for him again. Not as an order, but as a request. She agreed, though her heart beat fast every time. She played only when the room was empty and quiet. She didn't want others to see her. The piano became their shared space, a place without titles or expectations. As days passed, he began to open up without realizing it. He spoke about the pressure of running a company, about how everyone expected him to be strong all the time. He admitted he hadn't slept properly in months. She listened without interrupting. She understood what it felt like to carry invisible weight. She did not speak much about her own past, but sometimes he noticed the sadness in her eyes when certain memories surfaced. Music became the language they both trusted. When words felt dangerous, melodies filled the gaps. One evening while she played, he closed his eyes. His breathing became slow and deep. She realized he had fallen asleep. A small, peaceful smile appeared on his face. She finished the tune quietly and watched him for a moment. It was the first time she had seen him at rest. That night she returned to her room feeling something unfamiliar. Hope. She didn't fully understand it yet, but she knew one thing for sure. The tune she once played only to survive her trauma was now helping someone else survive his. And without realizing it, both of their quiet lives were slowly beginning to change. The changes were small at first, almost unnoticeable to anyone else. The CEO began spending more time in the residence, especially in the evenings. He still attended meetings and made decisions, but something about him felt different. His eyes no longer looked as restless, and the constant tension in his posture slowly softened. The staff noticed it, though no one dared to ask why. For her, the change felt much deeper. Every time she played the piano for him, she felt both nervous and calm at the same time. Nervous because she was afraid of being seen, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of getting too close. Calm because the music reminded her that she was more than her past. It reminded her that her pain had not destroyed her. One evening, after she finished playing, he did not speak right away. He sat quietly, staring out at the city lights through the glass wall. "That tune," he said slowly, "it feels familiar even though I've never heard it before." She looked down at her hands. "I made it when I was younger," she said. "I used to play it when things felt too heavy." He nodded. "That's how it feels for me too, like it carries the weight so I don't have to." His words surprised her. No one had ever described her music that way. For a moment she felt seen, not as a maid but as a person. As the days passed, he began to ask gentle questions. Where did she learn to play? How long had she worked here? Did she enjoy music outside of that one tune? She answered honestly but carefully. She did not share everything. Some memories still hurt too much. He never pushed her. That made her trust him more. One night he confessed something in a quiet voice. "I thought being successful would make everything better," he said. "But the higher I climbed, the more alone I felt. I can't show weakness. If I do, people lose faith." She listened closely. "Sometimes," she said softly, "being strong all the time is what breaks us." He looked at her, surprised by her honesty. Then he smiled faintly. "You're wiser than you realize." That night after she left, he stayed in the lounge alone. Instead of feeling the usual panic, he played a few notes from her tune. He did not play it perfectly, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that the fear did not return. For her, the piano sessions became something she looked forward to, even though she was afraid to admit it. Music was no longer only about surviving her trauma. It was about connection. But deep inside, both of them knew this fragile piece could not last forever. The world outside the lounge was still full of rules, expectations, and secrets. And soon, something would force their quiet bond into the open. The first sign of trouble came on a morning that started like any other. She arrived early, cleaned the hallways, and kept her head down. But she could feel eyes on her. Whispers followed her as she passed other staff members. She didn't understand why at first, but the tight feeling in her chest told her something was wrong. Later that day, her supervisor called her into a small office. The woman's expression was serious, almost cold. "You've been spending a lot of time on the top floor after hours," she said. "That area is not part of your regular duties." Her heart began to race. She struggled to find her words. "I was only cleaning," she said quietly. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. The supervisor sighed. "People are talking. They think you're overstepping boundaries. This place runs on discipline. We can't have misunderstandings." She nodded, apologizing again and again. As she left the office, shame washed over her. The old fear returned, the feeling that no matter how careful she was, she would always be seen as someone who didn't belong. That evening, she avoided the piano. Even though she knew he might be waiting, she couldn't bring herself to go. The thought of losing her job terrified her. Survival had always meant staying invisible. The CEO noticed her absence immediately. The lounge felt empty without the music. His chest tightened slightly and panic threatened to return. He checked the time again and again, hoping she would appear. When she didn't, he finally asked one of the senior staff about her. What he heard made his expression harden. Rules, gossip, warnings. He realized something then. While the music had been helping him survive, she had been risking everything. The next day, he called for her personally. When she entered his office, her hands shook. She expected anger. Instead, he spoke gently. "Did I cause trouble for you?" Tears filled her eyes, though she tried to hide them. "I don't want to lose this job," she said. "It's all I have." He leaned back, silent for a moment. "You won't," he said firmly, "not because of me." He explained that he would handle the situation. He would make it clear that her presence in the lounge was by his request. She listened in disbelief. No one had ever protected her like that before, but even as relief washed over her, fear remained. Attention was dangerous. Being seen meant being judged. That night, when she played the piano again, the tune sounded slightly different. Still gentle, still familiar, but touched by something new. Courage. And for the first time in her life, she began to wonder what might happen if she stopped hiding. After that day, things were no longer the same. Her supervisor no longer questioned her movements, and no one stopped her when she went to the top floor. Everyone now knew she was there because the CEO wanted her there. That knowledge made her uncomfortable. She felt exposed, like a light had been turned on where she had spent years in shadow. The CEO, however, was changing in a different way. He started sleeping better. The panic attacks that once controlled his nights became less frequent. Music had become part of his routine, not as a cure but as support. He still carried pressure, but it no longer crushed him completely. One evening, after she finished playing, he spoke more openly than before. "I don't think I would be here without that tune," he said honestly. "There were nights I didn't want to wake up anymore." Her hands froze on her lap. She understood those words too well. She looked at him and spoke slowly. "Music doesn't save us," she said. "It reminds us why we stay." He nodded. "You reminded me." That night something shifted between them. It was no longer just music and silence. There was trust. Days later he asked her something unexpected. "Would you consider playing for others, just a small group, no cameras, no pressure?" Fear rushed through her. The idea of people watching her made her chest tighten. Old memories surfaced. Judgment, shame, being told she wasn't good enough. "I don't think I can," she said quietly. He didn't argue. "That's okay," he replied. "I just wanted you to know your music deserves to be heard." His words stayed with her long after she left. For years, she had believed her role was to clean, to serve, to disappear. No one had ever suggested she deserved anything more. That night, alone in her room, she played the tune again. But this time she added something new, a slightly brighter note, a small change. It scared her, but it also felt right. She realized then that healing didn't mean forgetting the past. It meant allowing herself to grow beyond it. Meanwhile, the CEO made changes of his own. He reduced his workload, trusted his team more, and started therapy again, this time with honesty. When asked what helped him most, he simply said, "I learned to listen." Their connection remained quiet, but its impact grew stronger. Two broken people, helping each other without trying to fix everything at once. And slowly, without forcing it, they both began to step into lives that felt less about surviving and more about living. The invitation came sooner than she expected. It was not a big event, just a small private gathering arranged by the CEO for a few trusted people from his inner circle. No media, no employees watching, no pressure to impress. Still, when she heard about it, her heart pounded hard. She spent the entire day fighting with her thoughts. Part of her wanted to run away and hide, just like she always had. Another part, quieter but stronger than before, reminded her how far she had come. She remembered the nights when music was the only reason she survived. Maybe this was her chance to let that pain mean something. That evening she stood in the lounge, hands trembling as she sat at the piano. The room was dimly lit, calm and silent. Only a few people were seated, spaced apart, their faces gentle and curious. The CEO sat slightly to the side, not in front, not watching her closely. It felt like he was protecting her space. She took a deep breath and began to play. At first, the notes were careful, almost shy. But as the melody flowed, her fear slowly faded. The tune wrapped around the room, filling it with warmth and honesty. Some listeners closed their eyes, others sat still, deeply moved. No one interrupted, no one judged. As she played, memories rose and passed without hurting her. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her. For the first time, she felt free. When the final note faded, the room stayed silent for a moment. Then someone quietly wiped their eyes. Another person whispered, "That was beautiful." She looked up, unsure how to react. The CEO met her eyes and nodded, pride and gratitude clear on his face. Later that night, he spoke to her privately. "You didn't just help me," he said. "You helped everyone in that room." She didn't know what to say, so she simply replied, "Music helped me first." She returned to her room feeling lighter than she ever had. For the first time, she believed her story did not end with trauma. Something new was beginning. Life did not suddenly become perfect after that night. There was no magic moment where all pain disappeared. Healing, she slowly learned, was not about erasing the past. It was about learning how to live with it without letting it control every breath. She continued her job as a maid in the same building. She still woke up early, still wore the same simple uniform, and still cleaned the same rooms. From the outside, her life looked unchanged. But inside, something was very different. She no longer felt invisible. She walked with a little more confidence, her shoulders less tense, her heart a little lighter. The piano remained an important part of her life. She still played the tune that once helped her survive her trauma, but now she played other melodies too. Sometimes they were sad, sometimes calm, sometimes quietly hopeful. Music had stopped being only a way to calm pain. It had become a way to express who she was. In her small rented room, the old piano still stood in the corner. But now, instead of feeling like her only escape, it felt like a companion. On difficult days, she played to release emotions she could not explain in words. On good days, she played to celebrate the peace she never thought she would feel. The CEO's life also continued, but in a healthier direction. He still ran his company and carried responsibility, but he no longer believed that suffering was part of success. He had learned, through music and silence, that strength did not mean hiding pain. It meant facing it honestly. When panic or anxiety returned, he did not fight it alone anymore. He paused, breathed, and sometimes sat at the piano, slowly pressing the keys. The tune reminded him that he was human, not a machine. It reminded him that survival did not require constant pressure. Their connection remained quiet and respectful. There was no dramatic story, no sudden romance, no promises spoken aloud. They shared something deeper than words. Understanding, they had both stood at the edge of breaking and helped each other step back. Over time, she was invited to play music at a few more small gatherings. Nothing public, nothing overwhelming. Each time she felt nervous, but the fear was no longer stronger than her courage. People listened. Some were moved to tears, others simply thanked her. Every time she realized her pain had created something meaningful. She did not stop being shy, she did not become someone loud or confident overnight, but she became someone honest with herself. She no longer believed she had to hide to be safe. One evening, after finishing her shift, she stayed alone in the lounge. The building was quiet. The city lights glowed softly through the glass walls. She sat at the piano and played the tune that started everything. It sounded familiar but also different. It carried sadness, strength, and hope all at once. As the final note faded, she smiled gently, not because everything was perfect, but because she had survived. And sometimes, surviving was enough to change a life forever. Sometimes, surviving was enough to change a life forever.